Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jeff Bolingbrook, and this is my associate and very good friend for many years, Mr. Patrick Hayes. And we are here to talk to you eventually about the Sharing Backyards program, but we're going to start off with the significance of pickle. It all started last summer. I had an epiphany of the pickle. I was hitchhiking in Canada from the east to the west, and I got a ride with the truck driver. And this truck driver was working for a grocery company, and he was driving a semi-truck full of jars of pickles from Toronto all the way to Vancouver, which, as it turns out, is 4,374 kilometers. That's really far for a pickle to travel. Everywhere along the way, at every major city, we would stop and we would deliver these pickles to the grocery store. And it really made me think, why is there not some place where people can be growing these cucumbers and turning them into pickles in each of these towns along the way, rather than some factories sending them this far away? We did a little bit of research, and it turns out that it's actually really not a good idea to transport pickles this far. A 1 kilo jar of pickles transported that far is going to result in 1.21 kilos of greenhouse gas emissions, 14 grams of other pollutants, and a 54-cent drain on the economy due to negative economic externalities. So we thought, what can we do to decrease the reliance on imported food and fossil fuel transport to get food to our mouths? And the answer to that seems to be more community gardens. There is one major problem with community gardens, though, and that is that there's a lack of public space where we can actually have these community gardens. Many of them have long lineups and waiting lists. So why not have some of the arable land that already exists in these urban centers in the form of private backyards turned into community gardens? And that's where our idea comes in. But these lands are underutilized at this point, and at the same time, about 40% of Canadians live in accommodation where they have no yard, in shared accommodation, townhouses, condos, apartment buildings, things like that. So we set out to connect the dots. And the connection of the dots is a way of connecting the people with yards who'd like to turn their yards into a community garden with the people who do not have access and would like to give their green thumbs a urban exercise. We call that answer Sharing Backyards, and I would like to hand this over to Patrick to talk a little bit about the prototype.
Okay. So basically, it takes the form of an interactive website, and so we have pilot projects happening in Vancouver and Victoria. Here you see a map of Victoria. This is a list of everyone looking for space to share and people who are offering their backyard spaces to share. And if we just clicked on one of these, we see that there's someone here who has 6 5x5 organic gardening plots that are going unused. We'd like to do a trade with you and see how it's being used. So what we'd like to do is expand this. We have it happening in Victoria and Vancouver. We'd like to expand it across the country and eventually around the world. So you may be asking yourself, what a wonderful idea, but how are you going to pay for it and how are you going to drive traffic? And the answer to that is local partners. So the whole idea behind this is that in each community there is local NGOs who are committed to sustainable development and committed to urban gardening. And we want to go and find those local NGOs and empower them to run their own sharing backyard system in their own community. So in Victoria, we have LifeCycles. It doesn't really fit on the screen very well, but we have LifeCycles, which is our parent organization. We're running this under a nonprofit charity. So this is a charitable organization that we're a part of, and they're also a local partner in Victoria. We have City Farmer in Vancouver and other organizations around. So basically the idea is that they know their community, they do the legwork, and they drive traffic to the site, and they're the ones, we empower them to make sharing backyards happen in their own community. As opposed to make money on it, is what we're going to do is advertising. So there's a blank spot over here where we want to empower the local NGOs who know who their local players are, who know who the local organic grocer is, who knows who the local seed merchant is, and we're going to, when they go out and find advertising and put advertising on their Sharing Backyards portal, we take 50%, they take 50%. And if we happen, and we'll also try to go out and find partners, 2 minutes, where we can find advertising where we don't have a local partner or where the local partner isn't finding advertising. So that's basically how we hope to generate enough revenue to keep this thing going so we can expand it throughout North America.
So where do you come in? Well, at this point, we have a prototype model, and we have a little bit of a network at this point with some NGOs, but we need a little bit of seed money to keep this going, to expand our network, and to eventually make more community partners. And we also have a plan for a media blitz, which will include press releases, interviews with local media, customizable poster templates for each NGO to set up in their communities, viral marketing, word of mouth spreading of the news, and of course partnership with ideologically similar organizations and projects. For example, the Green News people, we are actively engaged in a partnership at this point. And what else can you do? Well, please help us spread the word to every homeowner and every budding green thumb person you might know out there by telling them about sharing backyards, and tell them that if they're interested, this is a great thing for them to do. Thank you very much.
Love the energy on the whole thing, and I think that's something that you guys really bring to this whole project, is that the energy that you tell your story with really comes across in everything you do. And we were commenting on your green shirt and your green pants, and the green laptop, and then Pickle's going to come along. So I love the fact that that Pickle story, again, when Susan and I were there for the first day, that story was so compelling that it just pulled us in. And then when you showed the map and you showed us that now on this presentation, it just added that much more compelling nature to this sharing backyards thing. So, good stuff.
Thank you.
So I've got a scathingly brilliant idea for you. I think if you had an A, B, and I'm going to give you a C. What would it look like if you could find like an Encana or a Shell or an Imperial Oil who is creating the carbon emission that you're trying to fight? And you got them to just sponsor you across Canada, and you got their employees to be the people that maintain the website and who go get you press and go get you and build your community. That could be 1 or 2 calls instead of 1,000 calls in 60 cities.
Right.
And I think I can help you with that. So
Okay.
I'm excited now by it. A couple things that I would like to see that would even fortify what you're doing more from a visual perspective is when you're painting that bleakness of what it's like to be an apartment dweller, having been an apartment dweller, my biggest thing was when I finally got a garden, I was happy dancing around the yard. But to show, when you look out your balcony, what do you see? All you see is a whole bunch of concrete that everyone else has. And then what does the person who has an unlandscaped backyard see? They just see a square with nothing in it. And then how the two coming together and your map come up or something.
Exactly.
A little thing to nail it home.
I'm doing the happy dance.
The happy dance. That's very important. Yeah, that was excellent. Great energy. Really great energy. I would back you guys, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you just quickly explain how this actually works? Like, does an apartment dweller come into your backyard and hang out there? Like, do people like this, or?
So basically, the idea is providing a listing service, and we're doing it on a map. So the idea is that instead of finding someone across town, you find your neighbor, and that's why we base it all around a map. And basically, we provide the listing service. We can link people up, but we give suggestions of what people should talk about, like when people are out to access the land, water, whether they actually share the vegetables or if there's any exchange. So, but basically we give suggestions, but we leave it up to the individuals to negotiate that. And so we would encourage people who do post saying, I want to open up my backyard for gardeners, say, I expect this and I expect this and I don't want this. So ultimately we want it to be flexible enough that people can figure out how they want to share their space.
Okay.
And we will also be adding in a terms of service agreement after talking to Abby. Just so that we can avoid any liability on that claim, because we want to create a forum where people can negotiate and have a dialogue about this, but we don't want to be responsible if something does happen wrong, right? Which we probably won't.
Maybe it doesn't take much a whole other project like the story you think went wrong.
It's a kind of dating site.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to
You know, and so in our discussions, that's what we sort of talked about.
May I just make a brief comment?
comment on, we were having breakfast one morning, you said something fantastic. By the way, I'm evangelizing for you. But you said a great thing about the idea that people so get into technology and they live online, and they do. They don't know their neighbors. We tried to ask a guy what the name of that mountain was, and he had his little, what are those things called? Music earphones with whatever. No, one of those things. Whatever. He was listening to music, and he was walking up, and I said, "Excuse me, I need $100." And I thought, and then you said to me, "It's so great because we're using technology and we're using this incredible interactive social networking to get people to know their neighbors." It's like this beautiful cycle, and the cyclical nature of that concept. I just think while you're saving pickles, maybe you can mention that you're saving people, or you're
building community.
Sure. Something about, because that stuck with me. So like that's what I took away from my conversation with you.
Good. Well, that's actually, we have a good term for that. We call it the happy byproduct. And our happy byproduct is strengthening community relations in your local neighborhood. Where when digitally we sort of made good friends with people on the other side of the globe, but we sort of in the process maybe lost track of our neighbors. And now we're going to use the same technology to bring it right back closer to home.
Are you going to have blogs or anything on there to sort of help? Because for me, for instance, great idea, but what do I do? How do I garden? What am I really going to do? What am I going to do?
We didn't mention that, but yeah, we hope to kind of, the core product will be the Sharing Backyards listing service, but we hope to attach other things to it. So a blog, or maybe try to syndicate content from the Green News, or gardening tips. So the core product will certainly be the Sharing Backyards, but as we develop the site, we expect to attach a lot more other content to it. It's kind of help bring people back to the
One
site.
of the major reasons of that, I think he's saying, is that if we have the advertisers, we want to be able to say that once people have made a connection with someone in their neighborhood, they may never actually come back to the site again, and that doesn't really work with our revenue model, so we're going to start incorporating things that will make people want to keep coming back again and again and again.
And of course, one of those things has to be photos, right?
Right.
Watching the cucumbers grow and, seeing what's growing in this backyard and, testimonials, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
One thing that maybe I didn't hear about, you I think you forgot to mention, is you're a nonprofit, right? And I
Registered
think
charity.
You really need to make that obvious at the very beginning, because whatever your profit is going to go back into.
That's right. There's no, we can make oodles of money, but we can't make profit. That's the key. It's all the money we make needs to be put back into the project. So. Any other questions? Oh, Marty.
Just a quick comment. Something that you have done really well is created a mythology, which you're going to be quoted on over and over again, which you get tons of press, which I love, and it's a very quotable story. And I would encourage everybody in the room who feels they might be getting some press interest to be thinking about what's your story, what's your little soundbite that you want to be known for, because media loves that. A guy was quoted once as saying, 10% of your customers are just margin-sucking maggots, and that got me so much business. And I just was being flip, but it got calls from all over the States, so those kinds of things can actually attract people.
Well, besides the pickle story, along that line, I overheard these guys saying that they've grown up together. They shared a backyard.
Once we grew up living next door to each other.
And he has a scar to prove it.
I have a scar to prove it.
Oh, yeah.
This house, but actually we're not going to do this. We actually grew up next door to each other with a yard. I thought there was a fence, but it's basically a shared yard.
And you had to break down the fence, and that's what the scar is from.
The scar is from me.
Just be with your neighbor.
The other time we lived and shared a backyard, I slept in a hammock on one corner of the yard, and he slept in a tent on the other side. We spent the summer doing that. Pretty cool. Anyway. Yes, I think
one thing you told me when I went over to visit was the idea that if I wanted to find out what's going on in Toronto, I would type in my postal code.
City, yeah.
So I think that would be excellent for advertisers, because then whenever I typed in my postal code, then I would find out about my local market.
And that's the idea.
And I think that's something that you should present.
That's exactly how we hope to make the advertising be high value advertising, is because it's targeted. It's targeted for people who live in that neighborhood, and are interested in gardening, right? And so basically that's a very specific audience, and if you can hit a small number of businesses that are target that audience, you can charge them relatively large amounts of money for the advertising.
Canadian Tire or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I know they're doing location, they're doing a lot of analysis and sending out
Right.
once a week, so exactly that neighborhood.
Right.
I know that's doing get out, so I'm looking at.
Oh yeah, maybe unplug me. I'm just gonna get oh no, leave me plugged in.
I just wanted to say that the concept of creating the urban parks is it makes a ton of sense. And I just wondered when it came to advertising and community support, what role like civic governments might be able to play in terms of bylaws and just helping keep the community organized around it.
Right.
I do think the grassroots component of this is key. But also, what about the retail food sector? Is that can they support this, or are they in a sense competition? And I'm just wondering if you guys have thought of that, because in theory they might be able to support it. And then of course there's the OCW as well.
And we're happy to be supported by the competition. That works out really well.
Yeah. As far as municipal governments and stuff, I haven't thought a lot about. I mean, there's certainly a lot that will be enthusiastic about the idea, like to connect with them. But I haven't quite visualized what that might look like.
Any suggestions are wonderful.
Yeah.
O'Neill, did you have, okay, we'll go O'Neill and then Robbie and then that's it.
Okay, you got my mind working. So I was thinking a little bit more corporate. I was thinking approaching the Google Maps, the Facebooks, and just to get some sort of programmer to integrate those things. I was thinking about home hardware,
right.
Having them advertise their locations, because hey, if you're building a garden, you want to know where the nearest home hardware is to get equipment, right? So some sort of joint partnership.
Right.
I don't know how you dream it up, but hey,
there's all sorts of like great sponsorships ideas, and I think we need to be really careful because our core audience are really react negatively if there's too much sponsorship. I think we can handle a little bit, but if we just go over that board, we lose our entire audience. So yes, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think we have gotten so many ideas about that, but I'm a little bit resistant. I think they're great, but I'm a little bit resistant because I don't want to lose the core audience. So I think we need to, when we do that, we need to find someone who's good at marketing who really understands that edge that we're walking between interacting with the corporate world and getting money through doing that, but at the same time not going too far that we're alienating our core audience.
Okay, Robbie, last comment.
It's just, again, you've got my mind working, and I think that's just testimony to how sort of vital this discussion is. But the food bank angle, I was just wondering, this doesn't need a lot of more legs to get it going, but I was wondering if somehow vets really want non-perishable, high protein, maybe they want tins of beans and stuff, and they do not want 300,
I'll take
cabbage heads and stuff. But I wonder if there's a link in there and an angle to make this even a sweeter proposition.
I think maybe not food banks, but homeless shelters, because it's homeless shelters that are making fresh meals every day. And so and it's saying 10% for homeless shelters or 20% for homeless shelters, and encouraging people to take the pledge or something. And then maybe competition about who donated the most, and then driving traffic and things like that.
This can all go in our suggestions for successful interactions with your neighbors section, basically. We can make suggestions of all sorts and see where it goes.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.